That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. Fort Bragg's K-9 training compound sat beneath the North Carolina sun like a monument to discipline. Handlers moved in perfect synchronization with their dogs. German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, Labrador Retrievers, each pair a study in trust built through thousands of hours of repetition. The sound of commands echoed across the yard, crisp, professional, absolute. Sergeant Maya Reeves had been a handler for 6 years. Her partner, a 4-year-old Belgian Malinois named Titan, specialized in explosive detection. Their record was flawless: 43 deployments, 0 missed threats, 3 commendations. Titan wasn't just trained, he was legendary among handlers for his precision and his uncanny ability to detect trace amounts of material that even the newest equipment missed. But that Tuesday morning, during what should have been a standard recertification exercise, General Theodore Marks arrived unannounced with a film crew documenting modernization efforts in military working dog programs. He had a reputation for efficiency over sentiment, for numbers over nuance. And he had recently advocated for replacing K-9 units with drone technology and electronic sensors. The test began normally. Titan moved through the course with focused intensity, his nose working the air currents, his body language communicating directly to Maya. Then came the moment that would divide the base. Titan alerted on a storage container that had been cleared by both electronic sweeps and 2 other K-9 teams. General Marks stepped forward, cameras rolling. "False positive," he announced. "This is exactly the kind of unreliability we're addressing with updated protocols." Maya felt the weight of every eye on the field. Titan sat in perfect alert position, unmoving, his training absolute. She knew that posture. She knew what it meant. And she knew what came next would cost her everything or prove everything. Chapter 1. The alert. The morning air carried the scent of pine and diesel fuel across Fort Bragg's K-9 compound. Sergeant Maya Reeves adjusted her patrol cap against the glare as Titan completed his warm-up routine. Figure eights between orange cones, each turn precise, each movement an extension of her commands. 6 years of partnership had made them fluent in each other's language. She read his ear positions, the tension in his shoulders, the exact angle of his head when something caught his attention. He read her breathing, her footfalls, the microsecond hesitations that preceded every command. The recertification course was laid out in the central yard. 12 stations, each designed to test detection capability under varying conditions. Wind direction, temperature, humidity, all factored into the challenge. Maya had run this course 40 times. Titan had never failed. "Handler ready?" Lieutenant Colonel Pierce called from the observation platform. "Ready, sir." Maya's voice carried the practiced neutrality of military precision. "Begin." Titan moved into working mode instantly. His body lowered, his focus sharpened, and he began the methodical process of clearing each station. Station 1, clean. Station 2, clean. His nose worked the air in patterns Maya had learned to recognize: horizontal sweeps for ground-level threats, vertical lifts for elevated positions. She noticed the convoy of vehicles approaching the compound entrance, black SUVs, official flags. Someone important was arriving unannounced. Station 3, Titan paused, recalibrated, moved on, clean. Station 4, a slight hesitation, then confirmation, clean. The SUVs stopped at the compound gate. Doors opened. Maya recognized the insignia before she saw the face. General Theodore Marks, accompanied by a civilian film crew with professional cameras and boom microphones. Her stomach tightened. Marks had testified before Congress 3 months ago, advocating for a 50% reduction in military working dog programs. "Biological assets are unreliable and expensive," he'd said in a video that went viral among handlers. Technology doesn't need food, doesn't get tired, and doesn't form emotional attachments that cloud judgment. Station 5, clean. Station 6, clean. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce descended from the observation platform to greet the general. Voices carried across the yard, polite, professional, carefully neutral. The film crew began setting up, their cameras swiveling to capture the training in progress. Station 7 clean, Station 8 clean. Station. Maya felt Titan's energy shift as they approached Station 9, a 20-foot storage container positioned near the compound's eastern fence. The container had been cleared that morning by the newest electronic detection system, a prototype the Army was testing as a potential K-9 replacement. 2 other dog teams had cleared it during their certifications an hour earlier. Titan's approach slowed. His head lifted, nostrils flaring. Maya felt her own pulse accelerate. Station 9. Titan stopped 3 feet from the container. His entire body went rigid. Then, in one fluid motion, he sat, the universal alert position that meant detection, absolute and certain. Maya's hand dropped to his vest, acknowledging the alert. Titan indicates positive, sir. The compound went silent. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce approached, his expression unreadable. Behind him, General Marks strode forward, cameras tracking his movement. "False alert," the general said, his voice carrying across the yard. This container was cleared by electronic sweep at 0600 and certified by 2 K-9 teams in the last hour. This is exactly the kind of unreliability we're addressing with updated protocols. Maya felt 40 pairs of eyes on her. Every handler on base understood what was happening. This wasn't about Titan. This was about justifying budget cuts, about replacing dogs with machines, about reducing living partnerships to lines on a spreadsheet. Titan remained in alert position, unmoving. His training was absolute. He would hold that position until released or until the threat was neutralized. Maya's voice was steady, professional. "Sir, Sergeant Titan has 43 deployments with 0 false positives. Request EOD sweep of the container." General Marks turned to face her directly. The cameras captured every second. "Sergeant, your dog is contradicting verified clearance. This is performance anxiety, environmental stress, or handler projection. Release him and continue the course." The words hung in the desert air like smoke. Maya looked down at Titan. His eyes were fixed on the container, every muscle in his body communicating certainty. She'd seen this alert hundreds of times, in Kandahar, in training, in live situations where Titan's nose had saved lives that sensors and sweeps had missed. She'd also seen her career trajectory. 6 years of perfect service, recommendations for advanced handler school, a path toward instructor certification. Everything she'd built stood on the other side of the next word she spoke. "Sir, with respect, I trust my dog. Request EOD confirmation before proceeding." The silence that followed was absolute. General Marks's expression hardened. "Sergeant Reeves, I'm giving you a direct order. Release your dog and complete the course, or I'll have him removed from service and reassigned for remedial evaluation." Maya's hand rested on Titan's vest. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and certain. 6 years of trust. 6 years of partnership. 6 years of knowing beyond doubt that when Titan alerted something was there, she took a breath, made her choice. "Then, sir, you'll need to remove us both." Chapter 2. The Standoff. The compound's silence broke with the crackle of radio static. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce lifted his handset, his expression caught between protocol and judgment. General Marks stood 10 feet away, cameras documenting every microsecond of what was rapidly becoming an institutional crisis. Maya remained beside Titan, her hand still resting on his vest. The Belgian Malinois hadn't moved, his alert position perfect, his focus absolute. Around the yard, other handlers had stopped their training rotations. Everyone understood what they were witnessing, a sergeant defying a general's direct order in front of rolling cameras. "Sergeant Reeves!" Pierce's voice carried careful neutrality. "Step away from the dog!" Maya's training screamed at her to obey. 6 years of military discipline, of chain of command, of understanding that orders weren't suggestions. But 6 years of partnership with Titan screamed louder. "Sir, request permission to speak." General Marks stepped forward before Pierce could respond. "Permission denied. You've made your position clear, Sergeant. Now face the consequences." The film crew adjusted their angles, capturing Marks's authoritative stance, Maya's defiant stillness, and Titan's unwavering alert. This wasn't just documentation anymore. This was content, a general confronting insubordination, a handler choosing her dog over her career. "General Marks." A new voice cut across the tension. Captain Sarah Chen, the compound's EOD liaison, approached from the equipment bay. "Sir, if I may, standing protocol requires EOD confirmation of any K-9 alert before declaring false positive." Marks turned to face her. "Captain, this container was cleared by electronic sweep and 2 certified K-9 teams." "Yes, sir, but those teams weren't Sergeant Reeves and Titan." Chen's voice remained professional, but her meaning was clear. "Their record is 43 deployments, 0 false alerts. That statistical reliability exceeds our electronic systems." "Statistics aren't the issue here, Captain. Discipline is." Marks gestured toward Maya. "This sergeant disobeyed a direct order in front of subordinates and civilians. That's insubordination, regardless of her dog's record." Maya felt her jaw tighten. She'd known the cost when she made her choice. Court-martial, probably. Dishonorable discharge, possibly. But letting them remove Titan, sending him to remedial evaluation that might end with retirement or worse, that cost was higher. Titan's breathing remained steady beneath her palm. He trusted her completely, the way she trusted him. That trust wasn't negotiable. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce stepped between Marks and Maya. "General, with respect, we have 40 witnesses and running cameras. If Sergeant Reeves is correct and we proceed without EOD sweep, the liability implications. Are you questioning my judgment, Colonel?" The question carried weight beyond its words. Pierce's career, like Maya's, hung in the balance of his next response. Pierce held Marks's gaze. "Sir, I'm suggesting we follow established protocol to avoid any potential complications." The standoff stretched across seconds that felt like hours. Other handlers had formed a loose perimeter around the scene, not quite intervening, but clearly present. Maya recognized the body language: solidarity without insubordination, support without violation of chain of command. General Marks scanned the assembled handlers, the cameras, the EOD captain waiting for clearance. Political calculus played across his expression. This was supposed to be simple documentation of modernization efforts. Instead, it was becoming a test of institutional values, broadcast to whoever would eventually see this footage. "Fine." Marks's voice was clipped. "Captain Chen, conduct your sweep. But understand, when this turns up clean, Sergeant Reeves will face full disciplinary action for undermining confidence in certified clearance procedures." Chen nodded, already signaling her team. 2 EOD specialists approached with portable detection equipment and protective gear. The protocol was established. K-9 teams and handlers clear the immediate area. EOD conducts physical investigation. Maya should have stood and moved back. Every regulation demanded it. But she looked down at Titan, still holding his perfect alert, and made another choice. "Sir, request permission to remain with my dog during sweep." Marks's expression darkened. "Sergeant, you're already facing charges. Don't compound them." "Sir, Titan won't break alert until I release him, or the threat is confirmed. If EOD needs to approach the container, he needs to know I'm here. It was partially true. Titan's training allowed for handler absence during EOD operations, but Maya wasn't leaving him. Not now. Not after choosing him over everything else. Pierce intervened again. General, handler presence during EOD sweep is within protocol if the K-9 is maintaining alert. Ooh, comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. Marx's silence was answer enough. Chen's team moved forward, their equipment humming. The senior specialist, a staff sergeant named Rodriguez, approached the container with a handheld chemical sniffer, the same technology Marx advocated as a K-9 replacement. The device swept the container's exterior. Green lights, no detection. Rodriguez moved to the door seam, the hinges, the ventilation gaps, still green. Maya felt doubt creep in for the first time. 43 deployments without a false positive, but there was always a first time. Maybe Titan had picked up residue from an earlier transport. Maybe environmental factors had created a phantom signature. Maybe she'd just destroyed her career for nothing. Rodriguez completed the external sweep and looked back at Chen. Container exterior shows negative, Captain. Request clearance for entry. Chen nodded. Granted. Full protective protocol. Rodriguez and his partner donned additional gear and approached the container's locking mechanism. The compound held its collective breath. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Rodriguez stepped inside with his equipment. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then he backed out quickly, his body language transformed. He lifted his radio. Captain Chen, we have positive detection, multiple sources. Recommend immediate evacuation and full hazmat response. Chapter 3. The Vindication. The compound erupted into controlled chaos. Captain Chen's voice cut through the radio chatter, calm and absolute. All personnel clear to minimum safe distance. EOD protocols in effect. Move now. Handlers grabbed their dogs and retreated to the designated safe zone beyond the eastern fence line. Maya finally released Titan from his alert, and he moved with her in perfect synchronization, his body still humming with the intensity of detection work completed correctly. General Marx stood frozen near the observation platform, his expression unreadable. The film crew had stopped recording, their cameras lowered, their earlier enthusiasm for documentation replaced with the sober awareness that they'd almost filmed a catastrophic failure of judgment. Rodriguez emerged from the container wearing full protective gear, carrying a sealed evidence container. Behind him, his partner was already setting up the mobile analysis station, a compact laboratory capable of preliminary threat assessment before full hazmat teams arrived. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce approached Chen. Captain, status? Sir, we have multiple positive sources inside the container. Preliminary detection suggests trace explosive compounds, enough for training purposes or potential improvised device construction. Running full spectrum analysis now. Maya felt her knees weaken. Titan had been right. Of course he'd been right. 6 years of partnership, of trust, of knowing that when he alerted, something was there. But hearing the confirmation was different from believing it. Pierce turned toward Maya, his expression carrying something between relief and concern. Sergeant Reeves, remain with your dog in the safe zone. You'll be needed for debrief. Yes, sir. Maya's voice sounded distant to her own ears. She knelt beside Titan, running her hands through his fur. Good boy, she whispered. Good boy. Titan leaned into her touch, his tail wagging once. A brief break from professional demeanor to acknowledge her praise. Then his focus returned to the container, his training and instinct still engaged. The mobile analysis station beeped. Rodriguez checked the readout and immediately radioed Chen. Captain, we have positive confirmation for RDX and PETN trace compounds. Concentrations consistent with recent handling or storage. This container was hot. RDX, PETN, military-grade explosive components, not residue from old training exercises, fresh contamination. General Marks approached Chen and Rodriguez, the cameras now conspicuously absent from his vicinity. How did this pass electronic sweep and 2 other K-9 teams? Rodriguez pulled up his equipment logs. Sir, electronic sweep was conducted at 0600 6 hours before current detection. If the container was contaminated after the sweep, it would show clean on record, but hot on live detection. As for the other K-9 teams... He hesitated. Speak freely, Staff Sergeant. Sir, the other teams were running standard detection protocols. Sergeant Titan specializes in trace detection, parts per billion sensitivity. Most K-9s are trained to alert on threat-level concentrations. Titan alerts on any presence, no matter how small. It's what makes him legendary, sir. He doesn't just find bombs, he finds the person who built them. The weight of Rodriguez's words settled across the compound. This wasn't just vindication of Titan's alert. This was validation of every argument against replacing K-9 units with technology. Electronic systems detected known signatures at measurable concentrations. Dogs like Titan detected possibilities before they became probabilities. Chen approached Maya, her expression carrying professional respect. Sergeant Reeves, your dog just prevented what could have been a catastrophic oversight. That container was scheduled for transport to the demolition range this afternoon. If those compounds had been exposed to the explosive materials we use for training... She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Pierce's radio crackled with incoming communication from base command. Maya couldn't hear the conversation, but she watched his expression shift from concern to something harder to read. He acknowledged the transmission and approached her position. Sergeant Reeves, you're to report to base command at 1400 hours. General Marks has requested formal investigation into this morning's incident. Maya's stomach dropped. Vindication didn't erase insubordination. Titan being right didn't change the fact that she defied a direct order from a general officer in front of witnesses and cameras. Understood, sir. Pierce's voice lowered. For what it's worth, Sergeant, you made the right call. Not the easy call, the right one. Before Maya could respond, General Marks approached. The other handlers instinctively gave space, creating a circle of uncomfortable privacy around the confrontation everyone knew was coming. Marks stopped 3 feet away, his posture rigid. Sergeant Reeves? Sir. Maya came to attention, Titan sitting perfectly at her left side. The general studied her for a long moment. Then he looked down at Titan, whose dark eyes returned his gaze with calm intelligence. Your dog detected something 4 other systems missed. Yes, sir. You chose to trust his training over electronic verification and my direct order. Yes, sir. That's either the most insubordinate or most courageous thing I've seen a sergeant do in 30 years of service. Mark's expression remained unreadable. I haven't decided which. Maya said nothing. There was nothing to say. Marks turned to Pierce. Colonel, I want a full investigation into how that container was cleared by electronic sweep and 2 K-9 teams, but showed hot on live detection. Something in our protocols failed today. Yes, sir. And I want Sergeant Reeves and Sergeant Titan's training records, deployment history, and performance evaluations on my desk by 1800 hours. Marks looked back at Maya. All of them. He walked away without another word, leaving Maya standing in the safe zone with Titan, surrounded by handlers who'd witnessed either her vindication or the prelude to her court-martial. Captain Chen approached once Marks was out of earshot. Sergeant, between us, you just made every handler on this base look good. Titan's detection prevented a potential catastrophe and proved that K-9 units can't be replaced by machines. Or it proved I got lucky, ma'am. Chen smiled slightly. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You've spent 6 years preparing. This morning opportunity tested you. She glanced at Titan, and he passed with perfect marks. Chapter 4. The Investigation. The office of Colonel Vincent Shaw, Fort Bragg's base commander, occupied the second floor of the command building overlooking the parade grounds. Maya had never been inside before. Most handlers dealt with Lieutenant Colonel Pierce and the K-9 unit chain of command. Base command was where colonels and generals managed things far above sergeant pay grades. Now she sat in one of two chairs facing Shaw's desk, Titan lying at her feet in perfect downstay position. Across from her sat General Marks, his expression neutral and unreadable. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce stood near the window, technically present but clearly deferring to the senior officers. Colonel Shaw reviewed documents on his tablet, his silence filling the room with tension. He was 60, Maya knew, with a reputation for fairness balanced with strict adherence to protocol. He'd served in 3 wars and commanded Fort Bragg for 2 years, without major incident, until today. Sergeant Reeves. Shaw's voice carried the gravitas of 3 decades of command. I've reviewed the incident reports, witness statements and video footage from this morning's events. I've also reviewed your service record and Sergeant Titan's deployment history. Maya kept her eyes forward, her posture at attention even while seated. Yes, sir. You disobeyed a direct order from a general officer in front of approximately 40 witnesses and civilian film crew. That's textbook insubordination under Article 91 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Yes, sir. You also prevented what EOD has now confirmed would have been a catastrophic failure of safety protocols. That container was scheduled for transport to the demolition range, where it would have been exposed to live explosive materials. Captain Chen estimates the contamination levels detected could have resulted in uncontrolled detonation. Maya felt her pulse accelerate, but kept her expression neutral. Sir, I was following my training and trusting my K-9 partner. Titan's alert was clear and certain. General Marks spoke for the first time since the meeting began. Sergeant, clarity and certainty aren't the issue. Chain of command is. You made a judgment call that contradicted my direct assessment and order. Yes, sir, I did. Why? The question hung in the air. Maya could offer a dozen military-approved answers: training protocols, K-9 handler doctrine, statistical reliability of her dog's record. But sitting in this office, facing the potential end of her career, she chose honesty. Sir, because I've spent 6 years learning to read Titan. I know when he's uncertain, when he's tired, when environmental factors are affecting his work. This morning there was no uncertainty. He was absolutely sure, and in 6 years he's never been wrong. 6 years of 0 false positives doesn't guarantee the next alert will be accurate, Mark said. No, sir, but it meant I trusted him more than I trusted equipment that had cleared the container earlier. More than you trusted me, Mark said flatly. Maya met his eyes. Sir, with respect, you're not a K-9 handler. You didn't see Titan's body language, his focus, the intensity of his alert. I did, and I made the call that my training and experience told me was correct. Colonel Shaw leaned back in his chair. General Marks, you've advocated for reducing K-9 programs in favor of technological alternatives. This incident seems to directly contradict that position. Marks's jaw tightened. Colonel, this incident proves that biological assets introduce variables that complicate command decisions. If Sergeant Reeves had followed my order, we'd have completed the training exercise without this disruption, and transported contaminated materials to an active demolition range. Pierce interjected quietly. Marks turned to face Pierce. That's speculation, Colonel. We don't know if the contamination would have resulted in actual detonation. Captain Chen's analysis suggests a 70% probability of uncontrolled reaction, sir. Pierce's voice remained respectful but firm. Titan didn't just detect explosives, he detected a preventable catastrophe. Shaw held up a hand, stopping the debate. Gentlemen, we're not here to relitigate K-9 program funding. We're here to determine appropriate response to this morning's incident. He looked at Maya. Sergeant Reeves, do you understand that regardless of outcome you disobeyed a direct order? Yes, sir, I do. And you accept that there are consequences for insubordination. Maya's hand dropped to rest on Titan's head. The Malinois shifted slightly, pressing against her leg. 6 years of partnership, 6 years of trust. Whatever consequences came, they'd been worth it. Yes, sir, I accept responsibility for my actions. Shaw nodded slowly. General Marks, what outcome are you seeking from this investigation? Marks was silent for a long moment. Maya felt her future hanging in that silence. Court-martial, demotion, discharge, everything she'd built, everything she'd worked for, depending on the next words spoken. Colonel Shaw, I requested this investigation to determine if Sergeant Reeves acted within or outside of established K-9 handler protocols. Marks pulled up documents on his own tablet. I've spent the last 4 hours reviewing those protocols, specifically Regulation K9H47, subsection 12, paragraph C. He turned the tablet toward Shaw. Handler authority to countermand field commands when K9 alert contradicts electronic or visual assessment, provided handler judgment is based on documented training and partnership experience. Maya's breath caught. She knew that regulation. Every handler knew it. But she'd never expected a general to cite it in her defense. Marks continued. Sergeant Reeves has 6 years of documented partnership with Sergeant Titan. Their record is flawless. Her judgment this morning was based on that experience and training. Technically, she was within her authority as a K-9 handler to maintain her position despite my order to stand down. Colonel Shaw studied the regulation. So you're suggesting no disciplinary action? I'm suggesting that Sergeant Reeves demonstrated exactly the kind of independent judgment and partner loyalty that makes K-9 units effective. Marks's expression was unreadable, even if it made me look like a fool in front of cameras. The admission carried weight. Maya realized what she was witnessing, a general officer acknowledging error, not out of weakness, but out of institutional integrity. Shaw looked at Pierce. Colonel, your assessment, sir. Sergeant Reeves acted within handler protocols and made the correct call under pressure. She deserves commendation, not discipline. Shaw turned back to Maya. Sergeant, you put your career on the line for your dog this morning. That takes courage. It also sets a precedent that could undermine command authority if handled incorrectly. Yes, sir. Here's my decision. No disciplinary action will be filed. However, you will report to K-9 Instructor School at Lackland Air Force Base within 60 days to develop training protocols for handler judgment in conflicting assessment situations. You and Titan will serve as case study for updating our K-9 program doctrine. Maya felt relief flood through her. Sir, thank you. Don't thank me yet, Sergeant. You're also being reassigned to General Marks's staff as K-9 liaison for his technology assessment program. You'll help evaluate where dogs excel and where technology can supplement, not replace, biological assets. Maya's eyes widened. Working directly for the general who'd ordered her to stand down, who'd advocated for eliminating her job. General Marks stood. Sergeant Reeves, I came to Fort Bragg this morning believing I understood the limitations of K-9 programs. Your dog taught me otherwise. Now you're going to help me understand where I was right and where I was wrong. He extended his hand. Think you can handle that? Maya stood, Titan rising with her. She took Marks's hand. Yes, sir. We can handle that. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Sergeant Maya Reeves and Titan reach those who still believe in honor. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. The K-9 compound felt different when Maya returned with Titan that evening. Word had spread through unofficial channels, the handler network that existed in parallel to the official chain of command. Every person working with dogs understood what had happened, what it meant, and what it could have cost. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb, a handler Maya had trained with at Lackland, met her at the kennel entrance. "Reeves, you crazy or something?" Maya smiled slightly. "Jury's still out on that. Whole base is talking about it. You faced down a general for your dog." Webb shook his head in admiration. "That takes stones. Or stupidity." Maya began Titan's evening routine: equipment check, health assessment, food and water. The familiar tasks grounded her after the surreal experience of defending her career in Colonel Shaw's office. Webb leaned against the kennel gate. "What happens now?" "Instructor school. Then liaison work with General Marx's technology assessment program. Working for the guy who wanted to cut K-9 funding. That's going to be interesting." That's one word for it. Maya finished filling Titan's water bowl and watched him drink. His movements were precise, controlled, the same discipline he brought to detection work applied to basic needs. Captain Chen appeared in the kennel doorway. "Sergeant Reeves, got a minute?" Maya came to attention, but Chen waved her down. "At ease, this is unofficial." Webb took the hint and disappeared toward the training yard. Chen entered the kennel, studying Titan with professional interest. "Your dog's alert this morning. Prevented what could have been a major incident." EOD finished their analysis an hour ago. Chen pulled up her tablet. That container was contaminated with explosive compounds within the last 12 hours. Someone had access to materials they shouldn't have, used that container for storage or transport, then cleaned it well enough to pass electronic sweep, but not well enough to fool Titan. Maya felt cold settle in her stomach. "Ma'am, you're saying this wasn't residual contamination from old training exercises?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. Base security is conducting a full investigation. They want to interview you and review Titan's alert pattern to help establish timeline." "When?" "Tomorrow, 0800. For now, you should know that your dog didn't just find trace explosives. He likely detected evidence of unauthorized explosive handling on this base. The implications were staggering. Fort Bragg housed thousands of military personnel, advanced weapon systems, and enough explosive materials to level a city. Unauthorized access to those materials meant security breach, potential threat, or worse." "Ma'am, has anyone been detained?" "Not yet, but the investigation is moving fast." Chen's expression was serious. "Sergeant, between us, what you did this morning might have saved more than just the demolition range. If someone's moving explosive materials off-grid, Titan's detection could be the first break in stopping whatever they're planning." After Chen left, Maya sat on the kennel floor beside Titan. The Malinois leaned against her, his warmth solid and reassuring. 6 years of partnership, of trust, of knowing that his instincts and training were absolute. She'd defended him this morning against a general's order. Now it seemed that defense had been more critical than anyone had realized. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Lieutenant Colonel Pierce. "Base security wants you and Titan for full compound sweep tomorrow, 0600. Report to security office for briefing." Maya replied with confirmation and looked at Titan. "Guess we're not done working today, buddy." The security briefing at 0600 the next morning was smaller than Maya expected. Colonel Shaw, General Marks, Lieutenant Colonel Pierce, Captain Chen, and 2 civilian investigators from Army Criminal Investigation Command. No press, no cameras, just the quiet intensity of people managing a potential crisis. The senior investigator, a woman in her 40s named Agent Carr, led the briefing. "At approximately 0400 this morning, we detained Specialist Aaron Hicks, a munitions technician with access to explosive materials storage. His barracks room contained traces of RDX and PETN, consistent with the contamination Sergeant Titan detected. Maya felt her pulse accelerate. They'd found someone. Titan's alert had led to more than just contamination. It had led to a person. Carr continued. Hicks has been cooperative. He claims he was moving materials for authorized testing, but couldn't produce documentation. We're treating this as potential theft of military explosives until his story checks out. She looked at Maya. Sergeant Reeves, we need Titan to sweep several locations associated with Hicks, his vehicle, his duty station, and 3 locations he visited in the last 48 hours. Ma'am, Titan and I are ready. General Marks spoke up. Agent Carr, if this turns into active threat assessment, I want full tactical support for the K-9 team. Understood, sir. We have EOD and security standing by. The sweep took 4 hours. Titan worked with the same precision he'd shown during the recertification exercise, his nose processing information faster than any equipment. Each location revealed the same pattern: trace explosive compounds. Carefully cleaned, but not carefully enough. By 1000 hours, they had a timeline. Hicks had removed approximately 2 pounds of RDX from authorized storage over the course of 3 weeks. His story about testing fell apart when investigators discovered he'd been communicating with individuals outside the military who had records of anti-government extremism. Maya stood in the security office as Agent Carr updated Colonel Shaw. Sir, we're treating this as domestic terrorism precursor activity. Hicks was planning something or providing materials to someone else who was. Sergeant Titan's detection prevented those materials from being dispersed. Shaw looked at Maya, then at Titan sitting calmly beside her. Sergeant, your dog didn't just detect explosives yesterday. He detected intent. General Marks approached Maya as the briefing concluded. Sergeant Reeves, I owe you an apology. Sir, I came to Fort Bragg believing that technology was the future and K-9 units were obsolete. Your dog proved me wrong twice, once by detecting what machines missed, and again by detecting what humans planned. Marks's expression carried something Maya hadn't seen before: respect. Technology can detect signatures. Dogs detect possibilities. That's not obsolete. That's irreplaceable. Chapter 6. The Recognition. 3 weeks after Titan's detection prevented potential catastrophe, Fort Bragg's parade ground filled with personnel for a ceremony that had been planned quietly but executed with full military precision. Maya stood in formation with other handlers, Titan at her side in perfect heel position as Colonel Shaw took the podium. Today we recognize courage, partnership, and the irreplaceable bond between Handler and K-9 that represents the best of military service. The ceremony was supposed to be routine: commendations, speeches, the formal acknowledgement of exemplary duty. But everyone present understood this was different. The investigation into Specialist Hicks had expanded to include a network of individuals planning domestic terrorist attacks using stolen military explosives. Titan's detection had been the first break in that investigation. General Marks stood beside Colonel Shaw, his presence carrying weight beyond rank. He'd spent the 3 weeks since the incident working with Maya, reviewing K-9 capabilities, and fundamentally reassessing his position on technology versus biological assets. Sergeant Maya Reeves and Sergeant Titan exemplify the standard to which all military working dog teams aspire. Shaw's voice carried across the parade ground. Their partnership prevented catastrophic safety failure and provided critical intelligence that has since prevented multiple domestic threats. Maya felt her throat tighten. She'd expected commendation. She hadn't expected this level of recognition. Shaw called her forward. She moved with Titan in perfect synchronization, their 6 years of partnership evident in every step. They stopped before the podium, came to attention, and rendered proper salute. Sergeant Reeves, for exceptional devotion to duty, professional competence, and unwavering trust in your K-9 partner under conditions of extreme pressure, you are hereby awarded the Army Commendation Medal with Valor device." The medal was placed around her neck. Maya remained at attention, her eyes forward, but her hand dropped briefly to touch Titan's head. This wasn't just her recognition. This was theirs. General Marks stepped forward. "Sergeant Titan, for exceptional detection capability, unwavering focus, and service beyond the standard required of military working dogs, you are hereby awarded the K-9 Medal of Courage." The ceremony for Titan was different. The medal attached to his vest, his favorite training toy presented as reward. Titan's tail wagged once, breaking professional composure just enough to remind everyone that beneath the training and discipline was a dog who simply wanted to do his job well. As the formation broke and personnel moved to congratulate Maya, she noticed the film crew from that first morning. They'd been invited back, not to document budget cuts and modernization, but to capture this moment. Captain Chen approached with a smile. "Sergeant, you're about to become famous in the K-9 community." "Ma'am, I just want to get back to work." "You will, but first, you're going to help rewrite the entire doctrine for handler judgment in conflict situations. Your case is being studied at every K-9 training facility in the military." Lieutenant Colonel Pierce joined them. "Reeves, your orders for Lackland came through. You report in 6 weeks. They're building the instructor program around you and Titan." Maya felt the weight of it. Recognition, responsibility, the knowledge that her decision to trust Titan over a general's order had become institutional precedent. "Sir, I just followed my training." "No, Sergeant, you followed your instincts when your training conflicted with authority. That's the hardest call any soldier makes." Pierce's expression was serious. "That's why you're the right person to teach others how to make it." General Marks found Maya after the ceremony as she was walking Titan back to the kennel. "Sergeant, walk with me." They moved across the compound in silence for a moment. Titan investigated scents with casual interest, off-duty, but never completely relaxed. "I've been in the army for 30 years, Mark said finally. "I thought I understood military effectiveness, metrics, efficiency, technological advancement. Your dog taught me that effectiveness isn't just about what can be measured." "Sir, Titan just does what he's trained to do." "No, Sergeant. Titan does what he's trained to do because you trust him enough to defend that training against direct orders. That's not just handler skill. That's partnership." They reached the kennel. Mark stopped, studying Titan with an expression that had shifted from skepticism to understanding over 3 weeks of working together. "I'm withdrawing my recommendation to reduce K-9 programs. Instead, I'm advocating for expansion, more handlers, better training, and integration with technology rather than replacement by it." He looked at Maya. "You helped me see that. Your dog proved it." "Sir, thank you." "Don't thank me, Sergeant. Thank Titan. He's the one who detected what no human or machine could smell." Marks smiled slightly. "Though I suppose having a handler willing to face down a general probably helps." After Marks left, Maya sat in the kennel with Titan, running her hands through his fur. 6 years of partnership, 6 years of learning each other's language, building trust, becoming something more effective together than either could be alone. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. "Sergeant Reeves, this is Agent Carr. Wanted you to know. The investigation expanded to 4 states. Titan's detection prevented what could have been multiple attacks. Your courage to trust your dog saved lives you'll never meet. Thank you." Maya showed the message to Titan, who regarded her with dark, intelligent eyes. "Good boy," she whispered. best boy. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of the general ordered her to leave the dog behind. See you in the next one. Chapter 7. The Legacy. 6 months after the incident that changed everything, Maya stood in front of 60 K-9 handler candidates at Lackland Air Force Base. Titan lay beside her podium, his presence both teaching tool and living example of what partnership could achieve. "The moment you doubt your dog is the moment you lose effectiveness as a team," Maya said, her voice carrying across the classroom. "But doubt isn't the same as judgment. You need to know your dog well enough to recognize when environmental factors, health issues, or training gaps are affecting performance. And you need to know them well enough to trust them when they're absolutely certain." A young airman raised her hand. "Sergeant, when you faced General Marks, how did you know Titan was right?" Maya had answered this question dozens of times in the 6 months since becoming an instructor. Each time, she returned to the same truth. "I knew because I'd spent 6 years learning his language. I knew his body posture when he was uncertain. I knew how he looked when he was tired or distracted. That morning I saw none of those things. I saw absolute certainty. And 6 years of perfect partnership told me to trust that certainty even when it contradicted authority." The instructor program at Lackland had been rebuilt around Maya's case study. New protocols emphasized handler judgment, partnership trust, and the courage to defend accurate detection, even under institutional pressure. What had started as one sergeant's defiance had become doctrine. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison, Lackland's K-9 program director, joined Maya at the podium. "Candidates, Sergeant Reeves's case isn't just about trusting your dog. It's about understanding that K-9 teams are force multipliers precisely because they combine human judgment with K-9 capability. Technology can replicate detection. It can't replicate partnership." After the class, Maya walked Titan through Lackland's training grounds. These were the fields where she'd first learned to handle dogs 7 years ago, where the fundamentals of partnership had been taught through repetition and trust building. Now she was back, teaching others what she'd learned beyond the fundamentals, that true partnership meant defending your teammate even when it cost everything. Her phone rang. General Marks. They'd stayed in contact since Maya's transfer to Lackland, collaborating on the integrated K-9 and technology program that had emerged from those 3 weeks at Fort Bragg. "Sergeant Reeves wanted to give you an update. Congress approved full funding expansion for military K-9 programs. We're doubling handler training, upgrading facilities, and implementing the integrated detection protocols we developed." Maya felt pride settle warm in her chest. "Sir, that's excellent news." "It's your news, Sergeant. Your case demonstrated value that couldn't be ignored. We're naming the new integrated program the Reeves Protocol." "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll continue doing what you're doing, teaching handlers to trust their dogs and defend that trust when it matters." Marks's voice carried warmth that hadn't been there 6 months ago. "Oh, and one more thing. The footage from that morning. The film crew has been editing it into a documentary about K-9 effectiveness. It'll be used for recruitment and training. You and Titan are about to become the face of military working dog programs." After the call, Maya sat on a training field bench, Titan resting his head on her knee. She thought about that morning 6 months ago. The moment when everything balanced on her choice to trust her partner over authority. She'd made the right call, not the easy one, the right one. And now that choice was shaping how thousands of handlers would be trained, how K-9 programs would be funded, and how the military understood the irreplaceable value of partnership. Captain Chen visited Lackland 2 weeks later, bringing updates from the investigation Maya had helped begin. They walked the training grounds, while Titan explored sense with practiced efficiency. The network specialist Hicks was connected to has been completely dismantled, Chen said. 14 arrests across 4 states. Intelligence estimates they were planning coordinated attacks on multiple military installations. Titan's detection gave us the first thread. We pulled until the whole thing unraveled. How much explosive material did they have? Enough to cause catastrophic damage if they'd succeeded. But they didn't succeed because you trusted your dog more than you trusted authority. Chen smiled. That's being taught now at every security and counter-terrorism course in the military. Handler judgment as critical intelligence asset. They reached the K-9 memorial at the edge of the training grounds, a bronze statue of a handler and dog, commemorating military working dogs who'd served with distinction. Maya had visited this memorial 7 years ago as a new candidate, wondering if she'd ever earn the right to call herself a handler. Now her case was being studied at every installation where that memorial stood. Captain, do you think this changes anything long-term, or will budget pressures eventually push K-9 programs back toward replacement by technology? Chen considered the question. 6 months ago, I'd have said the pressure was inevitable. Technology always looks more cost-effective on spreadsheets. But you prove something spreadsheets can't measure, that partnership produces results technology can't replicate. That's not just good defense policy, that's institutional wisdom. As the sun set over Lackland's training fields, Maya released Titan for off-duty playtime. The Malinois ran with pure joy, temporarily free from the discipline and focus that defined his working life. She thought about the journey from that morning on Fort Bragg's training compound to this evening at Lackland as an instructor, about the moment when she'd chosen trust over obedience, partnership over hierarchy, about how one dog's absolute certainty had changed military doctrine. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison approached as Maya called Titan back. Sergeant, the documentary's premiere is next month at Fort Bragg. General Marks wants you and Titan there. Full ceremony, press coverage, the works. Sir, we're just doing our job. You're doing more than that, Sergeant. You're teaching the next generation what doing the job right looks like. Morrison smiled. Besides, Titan deserves to see himself on screen. He's about to be the most famous military working dog in the country. Maya looked down at Titan, who sat beside her in perfect position, his dark eyes calm and focused. 6 years of partnership, 6 years of trust, and now a legacy that would shape how handlers and dogs work together for generations. Good boy, she whispered. Best boy. Chapter 8. The documentary. The premiere of Titan. The Dog Who Saved a Base took place in Fort Bragg's main auditorium on a crisp autumn evening. Maya sat in the front row with Titan beside her, surrounded by handlers, instructors, and military leadership from across the armed forces. General Marks sat 3 seats away, his presence a reminder of how far they'd all come from that morning 6 months ago. The lights dimmed. The screen lit with footage Maya had only seen in fragments. The training compound, handlers moving through routines, and then, the moment everything changed. The camera had captured Titan's approach to the storage container, his body language shifting and his perfect alert position. What Maya hadn't seen until now was the wider shot, showing every handler on the compound stopping their work. The collective held breath as she and General Marks faced off, and the moment when she chose her dog over her career. The documentary's narration was crisp and professional. In military service, following orders is fundamental, but in K-9 units, handlers must balance obedience with partnership, trusting dogs whose senses and instincts exceed human capability. The footage shifted to interviews. Captain Chen explaining the explosive contamination, Agent Carr describing how Titan's detection prevented domestic terrorism, Lieutenant Colonel Pierce discussing the doctrine, changes that emerged from Maya's case. Then General Marks appeared on screen, filmed in his office 2 weeks prior, I came to Fort Bragg believing I understood military effectiveness. I was measuring metrics, cost per detection, accuracy rates, equipment reliability. Sergeant Titan taught me that effectiveness can't always be measured. Sometimes it's felt in the trust between handler and dog. Sometimes it's demonstrated when a sergeant chooses integrity over career advancement. And sometimes it saves lives in ways we only understand months later. Tool. The auditorium was silent except for the documentary's audio. Maya felt Titan shift beside her, sensing her elevated heart rate, offering his presence as comfort the way he'd done for 6 years. The documentary concluded with footage of the awards ceremony, Titan receiving his medal, and Maya's words to the handler candidates at Lackland. Trust your dog. Defend that trust. Partnership means nothing if you abandon it when it costs something. The lights came up. The auditorium erupted in applause. Maya stood as protocol demanded, Titan rising with her, and accepted the recognition with military bearing while her mind processed what she'd just witnessed. Her most difficult moment transformed into teaching tool, her choice elevated to institutional example. General Marks approached during the reception that followed. Sergeant, the documentary is being distributed to every military installation in the country. You and Titan are now permanently part of K-9 training doctrine. Sir, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that level of attention. Get comfortable, Sergeant. Leadership isn't just about rank. Sometimes it's about making one decision under pressure that shows everyone else what right looks like. Mark smiled slightly. Besides, Titan doesn't seem bothered by fame. Maya looked down at the Malinois, who was receiving attention from multiple handlers with calm dignity. He was right. Titan remained exactly himself, focused, professional, and utterly confident in his purpose. Agent Carr found Maya near the refreshment table, away from the crowd. Sergeant wanted to thank you again. The investigation you helped begin led to 17 arrests and prevented multiple planned attacks. You and Titan saved lives. Ma'am, we just did our job. You did more than your job. You demonstrated courage that most people spend their entire careers avoiding. Carr's expression was serious. Question for you. Have you considered moving into investigative work? K-9 teams with your capabilities and judgment are exactly what counter-terrorism units need. Maya hesitated. Teaching at Lackland felt like her calling now, shaping the next generation of handlers, ensuring they understood what partnership meant beyond detection metrics. Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but I think my work is with the candidates, teaching them to trust their dogs and defend that trust. Understood, but the offer stands. When you're ready for field work again, call me. Carr handed Maya her card. Meanwhile, know that what you taught us about handler judgment is changing how we use K-9 teams in counter-terrorism operations. After the reception, Maya walked Titan through Fort Bragg's grounds. They passed the K-9 compound, where everything had started, the storage container that had been removed and replaced, and the observation platform where she'd made the choice that changed everything. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce was waiting near the kennel entrance. Reeves, walk with me. They moved through the compound in comfortable silence. Pierce had been her strongest advocate during the investigation, defending her judgment even when it could have cost him politically. Sir, thank you for supporting me 6 months ago. Reeves, I didn't support you. I supported the institution that trains handlers to trust their dogs. You demonstrated that training works even under the worst pressure. Pierce stopped, looking at the compound. Every handler here knows what you did. They know you faced down a general and won because you were right. That's leadership. Sir, I just trusted my dog. Exactly. And now every handler in the military knows that trusting their dog, even when it costs them, is the right call. Pierce smiled. That's your legacy, Sergeant. not the medal, not the documentary. The knowledge that partnership matters more than hierarchy. Maya returned to Lackland the next morning with Titan, ready to continue teaching. The documentary would be shown in her next class, she knew. Her students would watch her face down General Marks and ask how she found that courage. She'd tell them the truth. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was trusting your partner more than you feared the consequences. And sometimes that trust changed everything. Chapter 9. The Standard One. Year after the incident that changed military K-9 doctrine, Maya received orders that surprised even her. Promotion to Sergeant First Class and assignment as Senior Instructor for the newly established K-9 Partnership Excellence Program at Lackland Air Force Base. The program trained not just handlers, but commanders, teaching senior officers how to integrate K-9 capabilities with technology and understand when biological assets exceeded mechanical alternatives. General Marks had designed it personally, drawing on the lessons he'd learned from Titan's detection. Maya stood in the program's first briefing room as 30 officers, captains, majors, and lieutenant colonels filed in for initial training. Titan lay beside her podium, now 7 years old and still in peak working condition. "Good morning," Maya began. "I'm Sergeant First Class Reeves. This is Sergeant Titan. A year ago, he detected explosive contamination that 4 other systems missed. 6 months after that, his detection led to the dismantling of a domestic terrorism network. Today, we're going to discuss why that happened and what it means for how you employ K-9 assets in your commands." The curriculum she'd developed with Marks was revolutionary, treating K-9 teams not as specialized equipment, but as intelligent partnerships that required commander understanding to be employed effectively. "The mistake most commanders make is viewing dogs as tools," Maya continued. "Tools don't judge. Tools don't have instincts. Tools don't form bonds with operators that enhance performance. Sergeant Titan isn't a tool. He's my partner. Understanding that difference is what this program teaches." A major raised his hand. "Sergeant, with respect, how do we justify the resources K-9 programs require compared to technology that's constantly improving?" Maya had anticipated this question. She pulled up comparative data on the screen. Over the last year, K-9 teams identified threats that electronic systems missed in 47 incidents across military installations worldwide. The Titan Detection Protocol, the doctrine that emerged from our case, has prevented 12 confirmed security breaches. Technology is improving, but partnership produces results technology can't replicate, because dogs don't just detect signatures. They detect possibilities, anomalies, and threats humans and machines overlook. She advanced to the next slide. Footage from that morning a year ago. Titan in perfect alert position, while General Marks ordered her to stand down. This is what handler judgment looks like under pressure. This is what partnership means when it costs something. And this is what every commander needs to understand about K-9 teams. They're effective precisely because handlers trust their dogs enough to defend their alerts even against authority. The officers watched in silence as the footage played through Titan's vindication, the explosive contamination discovery, and the investigation that followed. When the lights came up, a lieutenant colonel spoke. "Sergeant, that must have taken tremendous courage." "Sir, it took 6 years of partnership. The courage was just trusting what I'd learned." Maya looked down at Titan. He was certain. I defended that certainty. That's what handlers do. The program's success exceeded expectations. Within 6 months, every major command had sent officers through the training. K-9 program funding increased by 40%. Handler retention improved as commanders learned to employ dog teams effectively rather than treating them as specialized equipment. General Marks visited Lackland regularly, his role having evolved from skeptic to advocate. He'd authored military doctrine on integrated detection systems, written congressional testimony supporting K-9 expansion, and personally mentored 36 commanders through the Partnership Excellence Program. Sergeant First Class Reeves, Mark said during one visit using her new rank formally, "You've trained over 200 officers in the last year. The program you developed is being adopted internationally. Allied nations are requesting your curriculum."